So 2 weeks ago, I went to Boston with my wife, Paula, and it was for my 40th birthday. I turned 40. My wife, she surprised me with a trip to Boston. I am a huge Patriots fan, so we got to see a Patriots game. We got to even go into like a replica of like their locker room and stuff, so that's me sitting there. And yeah, it was great. But we didn't just go to the Patriots game. On Saturday, we went to a history and food tour in Boston. And it was really fun. Everyone was all senior citizens, but it was okay. We met this British couple, and they were great. But Boston is so rich in history. We got to visit so many historic sites, saw so many statues, and heard stories of prominent men and women. But the one that stood out to me was the story of Mary Dyer. So when our tour guide said, "Oh, this is Mary Dyer, and she's a Christian." Oh, so my ears pricked up. Why? Because I am a Christian as well. So we got to hear this story. So our tour guide shares this story about Mary Dyer. And Mary Dyer grew up as a Puritan. She grew up as a Puritan, but later in life, she decides to join the Quakers. Now, the Quakers are a different Christian denomination. But this upset the Puritans. They were mad. They were so mad that they tried to force her to convert back to Puritanism. So for years, they threatened her. They had so many threats, they even threw her into jail. But she wouldn't back down. She argued that people should be free to choose their religion. But on June 1st, 1660, the people were so mad that they put a noose around Mary Dyer's neck and they publicly hanged her in the town square. Her martyrdom had such an effect that, it changed what the Puritans were trying to do. They're trying to stop people, but her martyrdom actually had the opposite effect. It led to great dramatic changes in the laws of Massachusetts. It became the end of capital punishment for all Quakers. The religious freedom laws were later passed because of this event. And her statue is a reminder that religious freedom is what we value. Religious freedom is what we enjoy today. This is why we can gather today. But it came at a great cost. It came at a great cost and sacrifice. But it was worth it. It was worth it, you see. Now people are free to worship God without retribution, without fear. Today, we are privileged here, very privileged, and it might seem like we live in more civilized times. No one here expects to come to church and be killed. No one even thought of that happening to them today. So many of us, we know, maybe we won't die for being a Christian. We won't die for our faith. But this doesn't mean that the Christian life is easy. Because if the Christian life is lived right, it will be marred. It will be marked by difficulty. It will be uncomfortable. And that's what we learn from our Bible passage today. Our passage today is famously called the Beatitudes. It's the start of Jesus' famous Sermon on the Mount. So our passage today is from Matthew chapter 5, verse 1 to 12. If you have your Bibles, please open them. If you do not, please look up on the screen. Read with me as we look into Jesus' word. So Matthew chapter 5, verse 1 to 12, let's read it. It says this. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." My first point today is following Jesus is hard. Following Jesus is supposed to be costly. During the pandemic, I shared to you a long time ago that I had a lot of health problems. I had cholesterol problems. My doctor said I had a fatty liver. And then I had a kidney stone. And they had to do 2 procedures to get this kidney stone out of me, out of my body. But the hardest part, I don't know, I wouldn't say it was the hardest part. One of the more difficult parts of this whole thing was the diet changes. The doctor met with me and he's like, "You got to change your life. You got to change what you eat, or this is going to keep happening over and over and over again." And it scared me. So I went to the doctor. I had a kidney stone problem. Then I also had a cholesterol problem. So I had to get my cholesterol in check. And I also didn't want to get a kidney stone again, because that was the worst. But the diet had some complexity. Okay, it had a little complexity. There are some foods that are technically healthy, technically good for your cholesterol. So, almonds are usually healthy, and I love almonds. I usually eat them all the time with my coffee. Spinach is good. Spinach is good. Good for your cholesterol as well. Berries are good. Strawberries, fruits, those are healthy. The problem with those foods, they're too high in oxalates. And oxalates cause kidney stones. It's too high. So I couldn't eat those things anymore. So in the end, I had to deprive myself of these almonds and berries and spinach, and I had to try to figure out what would work. Certain foods where I needed to be. So there were days when my family, they're like eating barbecue ribs, they're eating steak, they're enjoying this, all the sauces of the barbecue sauce. Mashed potatoes with gravy on top, and they're eating it and they're happy faces. And here's me eating a chicken breast. Here's me eating there's some quinoa, there's some mixed vegetables, and then on the left, this was what I made. It was like broccoli, chicken breast, and cauliflower rice. I'm like, so good. They'd be eating snacks like donuts. They're like, donut man. And here's me with an apple. Everyone's getting bubble tea, and here's me with my jug of water. They'd be eating, but I'd be intermittent fasting. I was like, oh my gosh, it was hard, especially the smell. Oh, the smell. Can you compare the smell of ribs, the smell of cinnamon buns, to the smell of chicken breast and cauliflower rice? It's not comparable. It's not. I honestly felt deprived. But in the end, it was worth it, worth doing to get healthy. It's the same with the Christian life. Every Christian has to go through some kind of deprivation in order to follow Jesus well. There's some things we might have to give up. Going back to our passage and read about the kind of people who are blessed. Let's look at it, okay? And I want to look at it closely. These are the people, according to Jesus, that are blessed. And the list is interesting. And it might not be what we expect. Let's read it. Blessed are the poor in spirit. When I say it, I want you to cheer. If you're like, oh yeah, that makes me feel good. If it makes you feel good, go, woo, okay? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Liars! Just kidding. I'm just joking. Well, that's good, I guess. Okay, let's keep going. Blessed are those who mourn. All right, yeah, right. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Okay, let's be honest now. Blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, say false things about you. Falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. This is not, it shouldn't be an easy list to hear. But Jesus is telling his followers what it's going to take to follow him. He's giving them a realistic picture of true discipleship. The Beatitudes summarize the main themes of the Sermon on the Mount. So if you find the Beatitudes confusing, the rest of the Sermon on the Mount teases it out more in detail, and which we're going to get into with this series. But the point of the first half of each Beatitude is that Jesus is telling us that following me is going to be costly. It's going to be costly. It's going to be uncomfortable to follow him. That we shouldn't expect, and this is the thing, we shouldn't expect a walk in the park. We shouldn't expect that this is going to be easy, because it's not. Following Jesus is supposed to be hard. And it's not because God loves pain, it's not because God loves discomfort and he's smiling up there, but rather we are acknowledging and accepting that pain is a necessary cost of greater things. It's like working out. We had a saying in our gym class, no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. My gym teacher would say, no pain, no gain, as we're all working out. Meaning, when you lift weights, it's not supposed to be easy. You're not supposed to go, like, it's supposed to be hard. There's sweat, there's tension. But all of that is necessary to gain muscles, to get healthy, which is the better thing. That these things don't happen without sacrifice. So in the same way, it's painful and uncomfortable to follow Jesus. So let's unpack some of the difficult things that Jesus talks about. He says, blessed are the poor in spirit. What's interesting, if you go to the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke, if you go there, and you read the Beatitudes part there, it just says, blessed are the poor. That's it. Blessed are the poor, period. It's done. That if you are following Jesus, you will feel poor in this sense because the Bible teaches that all your money belongs to God. So even if you have a nice home, even if you own nice things, those things still belong to God. And that's the mindset that Christians should have. But I would argue a lot of Christians don't have that. They hold their money with clenched fists. I know I do. And it's hard. It's hard because money gives us this security. We feel good. Every time I go on my online bank account, I look, thank God we have money. And it feels good. This is security. It often makes us feel like we are in control. But if it belongs to God, then at any moment, God could ask us to do something uncomfortable with the money we have. It can get tricky. The challenging question to always ask yourself is, how do we become good stewards of God's money? It will mean becoming generous with it and not hoarding money for ourselves. Next, Jesus said, blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who mourn. Now, it's not like God wants us to be sad. He doesn't like it. But what this means is when we love our neighbors, when we love people well, and we see the brokenness in this world, it should break our hearts. It should break it. But for some of us, we just ignore it. We shrug our shoulders. But we should feel disappointment. That Jesus talked about those who are meek. Blessed are those who are meek, which means we are blessed when we don't have much of an ego. Rather, we are marked by humility, free from bitterness. It's hard to do because a lot of us love others. But Jesus' followers can't make it everything about themselves. Jesus goes on to talk about hungering for righteousness. And that's not easy. He talks about being peaceable. Some of you guys are holding a grudge with someone. Some of you have been fighting with someone, have been in conflict with someone for years. That can be awkward to be a peacemaker. And he talked about being persecuted for righteousness, meaning people will give us a hard time for being a Christian, for the convictions that we have. That is hard. I had a friend who settled down. He bought his dream home. They put a lot of time and money fixing the backyard, putting in a deck, fire pit, a new fence. His plan was to stay there forever. But God called him to start a church in a new city. So he had to uproot his family, and he gave up that dream home. It's tough. Every Christian will face some sort of cost to follow him. For some of us, it might mean giving up a career, maybe. It might mean giving up a romantic relationship. That's not going to be easy. So when we follow Jesus fully, we should expect it to be hard. We should expect it to be difficult. But unfortunately, some of us here, we love comfort. We love it. We're too comfortable. There's no risk to following Jesus. We have no risk. We're just walking so easy. You're playing it safe. You're okay with doing bare minimum. Just going to church. Oh, this is probably the safest place ever. It's not what Jesus wants. And some of us need to get out of the kiddie pool and go into the deeper waters. The deeper waters of following Jesus. And yes, there will be discomfort. But the world needs you. The brokenness out there, it needs you. And we need to go deeper with God. My second point today is following Jesus is hard, but it's more than worth it. Following Jesus is hard, but it's more than worth it. I said earlier that one of the hardest parts of having a kidney stone was the dieting and fasting. Like I used to eat out every Sunday. And it was not to offend anyone, but these days, I have to say no. I used to love eating out. Oh man, we go, Korean barbecue, yes. I would always say, yes, I'm there. But I can't. I can't. It's hard. I've had to give it up. I had to eat food that I didn't necessarily like. I had to exercise consistently. It was interesting. You're putting in all this effort, and you don't even know if it's working. But after 6 months of this new rhythm, my blood pressure and cholesterol went down. My doctor actually put me on blood pressure meds. And when she looked, and after we had another appointment in 6 months, she's like, let's take you off of them. And I was like, whoa, it was like Christmas morning. I was so excited. And I feel better now. And I can admit that I have fallen in love with vegetables. I have. It's true. Vegetables not soaked, like with these no salt rubs. Those were the good ones. Very healthy. But I started liking them. And there are days where like, I miss them. I actually miss them. And I'm like, Shala, we need a vegetable here. Like when we were on vacation, we're like, oh, we need some broccoli. But in a peculiar way, I have become thankful. I think I've said this before, but I've become thankful that I had this kidney stone. I became thankful that, man, it was like a blessing in disguise that I had this cholesterol problems. Sure, it was hard. It wasn't fun eating those foods, not at all. But here's the thing. Just because something is hard doesn't mean it's wrong. And I want people to understand, just because something is hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Following Jesus is really hard. It's really hard. It's probably going to be the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. But it's worth it. But it's worth it. It's the best life for you. And that's what Jesus is getting at in our passage. Let's read verse 3 to 6. And I want to include the second half of each verse. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Jesus is saying it's worth it. It's worth it. That as we lay down our earthly rights, we gain the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean? Maybe I'll ask, what does that mean? What does the kingdom of heaven mean? The kingdom of heaven is anywhere where God is king. God's kingdom is in heaven, but it's already broken through on earth. And one day it will fully fill the whole earth. Some theologians call it the already but not yet kingdom. The already but not yet kingdom. Meaning, you can experience the kingdom right now. You can. You can experience some of it, but it's not yet because it's not fully realized. Because as you can see, there's still brokenness, there's still death, there's still injustice, there's so many things that we hate, it's still happening. But when Jesus comes back, the second coming of Christ, he's going to restore and heal all things. He's going to heal all things. He will make things all right again. And that's the hope that we have. In verse 4, Jesus says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." We mourn the brokenness of this world. But as Christians, we don't just mope and cry. We don't go, "Oh, darn, we can't do anything about it." Yeah, we're just crying. No, we are moved to action. We are moved to action. As we take action, we experience God's power to make a difference. They're comforted because we are taking action on whether that's poverty, whether the things that you hate in this world. The ache in our hearts is leading us to make a better world. Okay? We can't just be like, "Oh, this sucks." We got to do something about it. We aren't just waiting around, twiddling our thumbs for Jesus to come out. We go and do something about it. Later, Jesus said, verse 6, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." Righteousness means being right with God. That every Christian is a sinner. But blessed are those who are not satisfied with just believing a few things and giving casual effort. Blessed are those who can't rest until they are right with God, because those are the people who will experience God in all this life-giving goodness. You know, last week we had 5 baptisms. I think it was 5, right? 5? And we heard their stories. And we heard, from our friends, they were saying that they've tried all kinds of things to fill a void in their life. And in the end, they found that the only thing that could really fill them, that could really give them peace, is Jesus. Jesus, period. Jesus. That's it. It's Jesus. And Jesus, with that, you get a great community. They were talking about a community that would love and encourage them to walk with them, that you're never alone in this. It's going to be difficult, but you're never alone. So we're all invited to experience something like that. Their stories are an inspiration to us, so that when we take steps of faith, we become an inspiration. We become an encouragement to others. So when the Christian life gets hard, remember this. When the Christian life gets hard, remember this. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're also fighting for others. God never wastes our pain. He never wastes our suffering. He'll always make something good come out of it. Remember Mary Dyer? Remember her? She was the story I said in the first story I said. Remember the Quaker who was unjustly hanged for her faith. Awful. But her death was a catalyst. God turned her death into something greater. It became true change, freedom of religion that benefits so many people like us. It's a sobering reminder that you are never fighting for yourself, just for yourself. Many people will be impacted by your story. They'll be impacted by your sacrifice. So if we do this as a church, we're going to have amazing stories. We're going to have amazing stories. We're going to have changed eternities and healed relationships, and we start to see a glimpse of heaven on earth. So as we conclude today, the first thing we learned today is that following Jesus is hard and costly. And I want people to know that. A lot of people, they make it seem like, oh, this is just all fun and games and we're just having a great time. It's hard. You should expect it. It's costly. It's like marriage. Marriage is hard. Well, what do we put on a romantic mood? Oh, it's so much fun. And people get into marriage and they don't know what they're expecting. And then, oh gosh, look at it now. It's hard. It will take work. So don't be surprised by that. We should be expecting that following Jesus will bring awkwardness and discomfort. However, it will be worth it. It will be worth it. We gain so much too. We gain his kingdom. Even though there is pain, we will be comforted. If not today, one day, God will make things right. The hunger for righteousness will fill our souls more than money or status. And in the end, it's those who follow Jesus who have everything to gain. And our future will always be brighter as long as we keep persevering in doing things Jesus' way.